Shrimad's divine grace, founder of ISKCON, Charanaravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki, Grantaraj Shrimadbhagavatam ki, Dear most merciful Lordship Shri Shri Hari ki, Shri Jagannath Shri Baladev Mai Subhadra ki, Shri Nataji Shri Balagopal ki, Shri Gornitai ki, Yitai Go Prem. Oh, glories to the assembled. Oh, glories to the assembled. Oh, glories to the assembled. Oh, glories to the Lord Spirit Shri Shri Guru Shri Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Narayanam Namaskritya.
Narayanam Namaskritya.
Naram Naram Chaiva Narottamam
Naram Saiva Narottamam
Devam Saraswatim Vyasam
Devim Saraswatim Vyasam
To Jayamidiraya
Tato Jayamudire
Nasta Praishu Badreshu
Nasta Prayeshu Abhadreshu
Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya
Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya
Bhagavati Uttama Shloke
Bhagavati Uttama Shloke
Bhaktir Bhagavati Naistiki.
Bhaktir Bhagavati Naistiki.
Reading from Shrimadbhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 8, Text 2, which has no purport. So I will read Text 2, Sanskrit and English, and then we can do Text 3 together, which has a purport. Tenin yodakam sarve vilapya cha vrishambhuna apluta haripadabja Rajaputa Sarij Jale. Translation. Having lamented over them and sufficiently offered Ganges water, they bathed in the Ganges, whose water is sanctified, due to being mixed with the dust of the lotus feet of the Lord. Text 3. Tatrasinam Kuru Patim Tatrasinam Kuru Patim
Tatrasinam Kurupatim
Dhritarashtam Sahasnujam Sahanujam. Yeah. Dhritarashtam Sahanujam
Dhritarashtam Sahanujam
Gandharim Putra Sokartam
Shokartam
Gandharim Putra Sokartam
Gandharim Putra Shokartam
Pritam Krishnam Cha Madhava Pritam Krishnam Cha Madhava
Krishna Chamadava
Tatrasinam Kurupatim
Tatrasinam Kurupatim
Dhritarashtam Sahanujam
Dhritarashtam Sahanujam
Gandharim Putra Sokartam
Gandharim Putra Shokartam
Pritam Krishnam Chamadava
Pritam Krishnam Chamadava
Tatrasinam Kurupatim Dhritarashtam Sahanujam
Dhritarashtam Sahanujam
Gandharim Putra Sokartam
Gandharim Putra Shokartam
Pritam Krishnam Chamadava.
Pritam Krishnam Chamadava
Please chant.
Tatrasinam Kurupatim
Tatrasinam Kurupatim
Dhritarashtam Sahanujam
Dhritarashtam Sahanujam
Gandharim Putra Shokartam
Gandharim Putra Sokartam
Pritam Krishnam Chamadava
Pritam Krishnam Chamadava Tatrasinam Kurupatim Dhritarashtam Sahanujam Gandharim Putra Sokartam Pritam Krishnam Chamadava Tatra there Asinam sitting Kurupatim the king of the Kurus Dhritarashtra Sahanujam with his younger brothers Gandharim Gandhari Putra son Sokartam overtaken by bereavement Pritam Kunti Krishnam Draupadi Cha also Madhava Lord Sri Krishna Tatrasinam Kurupatim Dvitarastram Sahanujam Gandharim Putra Sokartam Kritam Krishnam Jamadava. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Abhay Charnadavinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. There sat the king of the Kurus, Maharaj Yudhisthira, along with his younger brothers, and Dhritarashtra, Gandhari, Kunti, and Draupadi, all overwhelmed with grief. Lord Krishna was also there. Please repeat. There sat the king of the Kurus,
There sat the king of the Kurus,
Maharaj Yudhisthira, along with his younger brothers, and Dhritarashtra, Gandhari, Kunti, and Draupadi, all overwhelmed with grief. Lord Krishna was also there. There sat the king of the Kurus, Maharaj Yudhisthira, along with his younger brothers, and Dhritarashtra, Gandhari, Kunti, and Draupadi, all overwhelmed with grief. Lord Krishna was also there. Purport by His Divine Grace, Abhay Charnadavinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The battle of Kurukshetra was fought between family members, and thus all affected persons were also family members, like Maharaj Yudhisthira and brothers, Kunti, Draupadi, Subhadra, Dhritarashtra, Gandhari and her daughters-in-law, etc. All the principal dead bodies were in some way or other related with each other. Therefore, the family grief was combined. Lord Krishna was also one of them as a cousin of the Pandavas and nephew of Kunti, as well as brother of Subhadra, etc. The Lord therefore was equally sympathetic toward all of them, and therefore He began to pacify them befittingly. Om Gyanataminandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshushan Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. We see here the means of finding some solace when we are bereaved because of the loss of someone that is very dear to us, is to comfort them with the knowledge of God, comfort them with the presence of God, which Krishna was there in their presence as well. And His words are the words that are going to bring comfort to the souls that are seeking. In a sense, this comfort to them is the justice. Krishna will reveal, I believe he does, he reveals the benediction these young children will have by being born in the Pandava's family. But see, he's going to go rescue these children. And this arrangement was made for him to give darshan to, I believe, Varuna. So we will stay tuned for coming attraction, as they say. I gave a message one time, a eulogy at a funeral. Of course, funerals normally are sad. Well, I gave one at my grandmother's funeral, and I sang Hallelujah, and nobody would join in with me. But I explained before I sang that according to Christian scriptures, the angels rejoice when someone from this planet enters into the heavenly realm. It is a day of rejoicing for them. And if the angels then are rejoicing because they're coming to the heavenly realm, and how happy they're going to be. And yet here we find us crying. Of course, we cry selfishly because we are deprived now of what their presence gave to us when they were here. So, my mother used to say, if you can't say good things about me when I'm alive, don't bother after I'm dead. So she told me that right before. She said, you can cremate my body. You can cremate my body. If you want, it doesn't make any difference to me, she said. Do I remember seeing the reference to the sacred Ganges River due to being mixed with the dust of the Lord's feet of the Lord? They bathed in the Ganges water, but the ashes were also put into the Ganges, if I'm not mistaken. And when 1976, I didn't even know such a thing as the Ganges existed. But I had in my mind a vision of what I believed God would be. According to Christian descriptions, I saw him on a golden throne. And unnatural to Christian scriptures, there was a water flowing out from the bottom of that throne, which I had never known about. And as I was kneeling, praying in my living room, and I was feeling the water, ice cold water. And then I came to this description of the Ganges water flowing from the throne of Narayana, of Mahavishnu here, as it's being described. So that even gave me further, confirmation that this vision that I was given was real. And then I later, years later, I had the vision 1976. I immediately left for the Garden of Eden. I was going to go to the Garden of Eden, take a banana boat from Florida. And then, so it must have been, 76, 77. In 1978, I found myself getting water from an ice-cold stream in Montana. I was kneeling down and getting a bucket of water out and realizing, wow, this is just like that stream I was, having a vision of flowing in my living room at that time. And so, in nature, Krishna can reveal himself to us. And when he gives us visions, it becomes like indelible ink. You can't get it out. Well, this is how it is how you can say, tattooed into your mind. That's the only way I know how to describe it. These experiences that you have had that are revelations to you. And now here, the Pandavas recognizing Krishna as the Supreme and the one who can give them solace. Because the one who can give solace is the one who has everything under control. And even though we are thinking ourselves to be the ones controlling, it is 33 million demigods that are creating all the environmental circumstances necessary for us to be able to be sitting in this one place, to even be having a conversation. But we don't recognize that. And then when we go into foreign countries, we think of ourselves as having the right to determine for those people what kind of government they should be run by. And then we see in the Bhagavad Gita, the more, how you could say, transcendental purpose in the fight, because so many times the Pandavas were brought to the point of death by these Kauravas, and they were family members. They were supposed to be sharing responsibility, of governing the people, the cities that they were given to govern. But the Kauravas would have nothing to do with it. They didn't, and this has been described by Srila Prabhupada as envy. And then when Dhritarashtra, being born blind, it is said that it is one thing to be blind physically, but not only was he blind physically, he was blind spiritually as well, because he would not acknowledge the sinful, envious nature of his own sons, who were keeping the Pandavas from being able to have any designated lands to govern whatsoever. So in a sense, this was it's a political scene as a war based on principles of right and wrong. And whether those who are in the controlling position should be allowed to have that position irregardless of whether they're qualified or not. And as they were displaying disqualifying aspects of their own personalities, it was obvious that they were not in a position to be able to be determining who could rule the land or not. And so ultimately this war, see, in a sense, the winners of the war are going to write the history. But then when we see that it's being written by Vedavyas himself, Jai Shri Jai Jagannath, Jai Baladeva, Jai Shri Gunitai, then we can't judge based on the idea of the winners were biased in their perspectives, because Vedavyas was not biased personality, but giving the word of truth, like Srila Prabhupada calls it, as it is. And this is where we have the problem in the world with the passing down of the histories of other nations without validating their own histories. We totally wipe out that unifying factor which all these histories have the means of bringing the nations of the world together back again. They've been so pushed out of the legends, the Greek legends of Hercules. Hercules was Heracles, who is Krishna, his pastimes fighting against demigods, told through the views of the people of Greece. So Krishna, we may see him the same way Christians see Christ, as limited to the land of India. But he wasn't. They made the whole planet. And so those pastimes that are spoken of in other cultures, which are fourth offense, explains we should not blaspheme against any literatures that are, how can you say, conducive to the knowledge contained in the Vedas, all those literatures that also confirm those truths of the Vedas. Fourth offense is blaspheme the Vedas, or Vedas, or teachings in pursuance of the Vedic conclusion. So we should, by realizing the meaning of this fourth offense, we should realize the important significance that mankind should hold in the histories of other civilizations other than their own. Because they're all pointing to an original, supreme, powerful one And there is the understanding amongst philosophers that what is believed by all civilizations and has been believed for all time, there's significant reason to believe that there's truth. There's truth in it. And so this belief in God, this belief in a supreme power, is common to all cultures of the world. Except most recently those societies formed by influence of the desire for sinful activity brought out of the secular minds of men that do not have the same means of being able to unite men the way that belief in the afterlife can do that. Now, people don't know it. There are people that are going to heaven. They don't know it. But there are wars going on in heaven. They're fighting against demons. And there are demons who have access to flying machines superior to those that we have access to. It's in the heavenly realms. And there are lower planetary systems in which there are souls that have been around for a long, 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 long time. So this development of space travel that we consider new is old practically as the planet itself is old. And there are, so see, if we have biases in our own minds about the stories of the origin of certain cultures within the planet, what to speak, we're going to disbelieve anything other aliens might have as far as their perspective of what the world was like in the beginning of time. But, and as ridiculous as that would seem, it's the same kind of bias that we have when we conquer other nations and then totally destroy or wipe out all artworks, all writings, they burn the books, that give any account whatsoever of where this civilization came from and its practices and why they practice what they do. There is a deep-rooted belief amongst American philosophers that the Mayan culture had in its design human sacrifice, and that sacrifice was part of ritualistic ceremonies relating to their beliefs in God. I don't know enough about Mayan culture, but for us to consider ourselves superior to that means that we don't have any human sacrifice, right? But every single culture in the world that has ever existed has had human sacrifice by the committing of one's life to the cause they believe to be superior than their own life. Causes of justice, righteousness, truth, and sometimes mercy, in ending war. They fight to end war, which seems a little bit of a paradox, but there's some reasoning behind it. And then we get from Bhagavad Gita that it would seem might is right. Now, there was a battle between a demon, Britishur. What happened? Indra offended his guru. And his guru went to teach him a lesson. Because without guru's empowerment, you have nothing. And he was helpless against the demons. Helpless against the demons. And so he didn't know what to do. So he went to a Brahmin, half demon, half Brahmin, kind of you might say, who sided with him. But Indra didn't know that this half demon, half Brahmin was also siding with the demons. So there's a story in there in 6th canto, chapter 10.
Very interesting.
About how Indra had to gain. When Vritrashur is killed because of my spiritual strength, you will regain your strength, weapons, and wealth. Thus there will be all good fortune for all of you. Although Vritrashur can destroy all the 3 worlds, do not fear that he will harm you. He is also a devotee and will never be envious of you. So let's see who.
What are you reading from, brother?
This is from the 6th canto, chapter 9. And the Ashwini Kumars begged for Dhananyacha's body. And this, when Dhananyacha awards you his body, Vishvakarma will prepare a thunderbolt from his bones. This thunderbolt will certainly kill Vritrashur because it will be invested with my power. But later, Indra gains access to the Narayana Kavacha, which I am really believing now that Krishna is giving this for the sake of, for the sake of future generations. Indra afflicted by sinful reaction. I always do this. I read something and then I think it's like 1 or 2 paragraphs away and I get back to it and it's chapters away. You know? But it is, I want to encourage anybody that wants to read. Oh, here it is, the Narayana Kavacha Shield. Here we are. The whole chapter, that's the name of it.
So what does that mean?
The Kavacha shield is a protective shield that has the potency, just like in the morning we sing Lord Shrimadbhagavatam for protection, right? And also through the day. They started taking this up sometime in the 90s because we didn't used to do that at every RT chant Lord Shrimadbhagavatam's prayer. But in the Narayana Kavacha shield, it is a calling forth of the powers of at least 10 or more incarnations of Krishna, Matsya, Kurma, and Shrimadeva. And all these incarnations of Krishna then provide a protective shield as a benediction for the one who is chanting this. So what I wanted to do, Supreme Personality of Godhead, the living entities, the material energy, the spiritual energy, and the entire creation are all individual substances. In the ultimate analysis, however, together they constitute the Supreme One, the Personality of Godhead. Therefore, those who are advanced in spiritual knowledge see unity in diversity. For such advanced persons, the Lord's bodily decorations, his name, his fame, his attributes and forms, and the weapons in his hand are manifestations of the strength of his potency. According to their elevated spiritual understanding, the omniscient Lord, who manifests various forms, is present everywhere. May he always protect us everywhere from all calamities. So this is one of the verses of the Kavacha shield. May the Supreme Personality of Godhead's holy names, his transcendental forms, his carriers, and all the weapons decorating him as personal associates protect our intelligence, senses, mind, and life air from all dangers. Lord Garuda, the carrier of Lord Vishnu, is the most worshipable Lord, for he is as powerful as the Supreme Lord himself. He is the personified Vedas and is worshipped by selected verses. May he protect us from all dangerous conditions. And may Lord Vishvakshen, the personality of Godhead, also protect us from all dangers by his holy names. So, on and on. If you want to read this, this is in the 6th canto. It is a little bit, I think together there may be 15 verses or so, all in glorification of Krishna. But in reading this and meditating upon the purpose of the Vedas, that what is coming, the Vedas will provide protection for. When societies that are right now established in the world, and it can happen overnight, are brought down to the destruction that is coming. It's all prophesied in many sacred literatures of the world. There's going to be a breaking down of the communication systems of the world. But Bhagavatam will, and I really believe what's going to happen then during this time, that the advice in Bhagavatam is really looked to, will give protection to those that are understanding these scriptures are written for the protection of the followers of Krishna consciousness. And we will be able to protect our temples in this way. But if we will, we can build our own cities. These cities as they are totally out of whack, isn't it? This kind of sinful activity that's going on constantly. There's not a day that goes by that a murder hasn't been committed unlawfully.
Oh, yeah.
Or a robbery, or arson, some other form of crime. And these things, in Christian cities, they don't exist. Crime doesn't exist in Christian cities. And we have to establish the same kind of cities so that people can know what peace is. Because if you're afraid to go down to the city of Detroit because you might get jumped by somebody, that's not societal understanding of the way society is supposed to run and be developed. But here again, it leads to the teaching that's being taught from childhood and being put into children's brains. And until they get the understanding of the Supreme Person and the values of the principles the Supreme Person has set down for human beings, there's going to be high rates of crime. Because people will rebel against what, as souls, they see is wrong in society as well. There's a statement made, Srila Prabhupada, about who is happy in the world. And he said, crazy people and devotees. And you know, when you analyze this, people are being determined crazy because of their worldview mostly. Mm-hmm. And their worldview, if it's out of kilter with the general populace, then is deemed as insane. When in fact, the ones who are currently holding the worldview as what's going on is the norm, it's quite questionable as to whether they really have any idea in their mind is what normal should be. If they're thinking what we are going through now is normalcy. Because when there can be so many people doing these mass killings, you get these machine guns and they just murder 10, 15, 20 people within a matter of moments. How can this go on in a society if everybody is promoting love of God? It doesn't happen. And so that's the value of these scriptures, to have such an effect on society that people don't want to do harm to other living entities. What to speak of human beings. But not only that, then when we look at love of God coming from Krishna himself, he's giving protection to all of humanity at large who will take his words as truth. And all it requires is a little bit of time, reading, studying, desiring to know who is God and what are his qualities. Yeah. Krishna. Any comments, any questions, any realizations anybody would like to share?
So, river Ganges, it evolved from lotus feet of Krishna on the river.
Ganges originates from the lotus feet of Krishna. And then because it's so powerful, we could imagine what this whole creation of the material universe appears to those living beings who are in the spiritual realm as simply a lotus flower and someone seated on it. So our perspective of where we are and how big is really an illusion for a viewpoint of what would be considered normal, because we've jumped out of normal into a place away from God, tried to get away from God. Simultaneously, while we're trying to find satisfaction, which is in and of itself, it's like an impossible contradiction to run from the source of pleasure to find pleasure. Yeah, and that's what we're doing. There was a Christian, what happened in the 60s, rock and roll came along. And then a big spiritual movement came along. And then the kids from the 60s, they became spiritual. They wanted to blend the rock and roll with the spirituality. So one such song, Larry Norman, I think it was, wrote it. Might have been, yeah, Larry Norman. Walking backwards down the stairs, trying to get higher.
I love it.
And this is, it seems, if we look at people's lives in the material world, this is in effect what they're doing. They go to church on Sunday to become pure-hearted, asking to be forgiven of all the wrong things they've done through the week, and then they go ahead proclaiming that everybody is sinful.
Yeah.
And we have to succumb to the sin, but God gives us forgiveness of that. So it is because there is a lack of knowledge on how to restrain our lives, how to remove the souls that we are from the involvement with the material energy that is causing it to be determined as sinful activity. So and then we have this working automatically in what we call seva, devotional service, which Krishna pleads with human beings who are reading the Bhagavad Gita to do. He says, if you will offer me with loving devotion, a fruit, a leaf, some water, I will accept it. And so we have the very means, which to a great extent people don't even know this, that there is a specific process for doing that. So people may read that and then draw their own conclusions about what is being meant by that, and then they go outside and they look up at the sun and say, "Dear God, okay, please accept this glass of water," or whatever. So this we can see as well, evidence that the form of the deity establishes in the mind of the practitioner of worship a solid viewpoint of what Krishna looks like, what God looks like. And without this, everybody's left to their own speculations. And with those revelations being given by God himself, they can be considered speculations even though they are real revelations to the participant. So this is why it's so important. Krishna finds it important and necessary to reveal himself in a form, in a deity form, in order to establish the characteristics that he wants established about himself. But the same Krishna who establishes that through deity worship also restricts deity worship being done by those who are not authorized and do not have the knowledge by which to worship the deity properly, the deity form of Krishna. And so one might think, from a worldview, that when one civilization is being restricted from a certain activity, that applies to all civilizations. This is what's going on in the world. What God tells us to do, everybody has to do. But we have understanding that Krishna appears according to time and circumstance and gives knowledge accordingly for those that he's giving it to come one step higher than where they are. And so sometimes he has to come very low. And when the spiritual master comes to the low places, this is regarded by Srila Prabhupada, made mention of even scriptures being considered for Sudra-minded people. They insist on eating meat. They insist on having regular sex life. They insist on sleeping as long as they want to. But they still want religious life. So Krishna is so lenient, merciful, and kind. He makes a way for people he makes a way for people to say he died by someone shooting him with an arrow. It's a pastime of Krishna's, giving people justification to believe that he's an ordinary person. So he doesn't want them put in a place of, can you say, foolishness. So he'll give them some ability to justify that belief. Sticks his foot out. And then see, we have, in recognition to the same pastime in Greek philosophy, was that Mercury, wasn't it, had a weakness in his foot. Achilles heel. These pastimes are passed down with teachings that should be the evaluating factor, not what country they came from or what people they came from, but what value the teaching itself has for the advancement of the soul getting to God. But if people don't realize the means of determining the value of writings is by whether it draws us closer to God or not, especially if they are themselves not believing in God. But what are these secular writings and what are the philosophies of these secular theorists doing for the advancement of society? Which they say, you know, they blame society's religions for all the wars. But where is atheistic society doing anything to stop the wars? We don't see any efforts being made by them for that cause either. And then, you know, to a great extent, it's all these breaking of these regulative principles that is the cause of all these disturbances in society. And Srila Prabhupada even equates the killing of the cow to the fact that there is war going on. Because it has more subtle effects on society at large than we're aware of. When the Mother Earth is giving birth to these creatures in the mode of goodness, the only creature I know accredited with being born in the mode of goodness. Swans come from the heavenly planets. But then the society is just bent on not only slaughtering the animal, but looking at that as a form of food in the highest order. They elevate that to being. And so it's almost in, you know how we say, one raising their nose at certain echelons of society. You know, like Mrs. Clinton made the deplorables, put them all in a basket, the deplorables. So similarly, like this, people are having this attitude towards God, in a sense. Sticking their nose up at God's principles, saying, no, we know what's better. We have more to be gained by breaking the regulative principles. That's what human beings are. In fact, making these breaking of the regulative principles as a form of reward. Isn't it? So at the end of a hard work season, you get time off to go vacation. Well, they do go to Las Vegas. Go naked bathing in the coast somewhere. Or, you know, go to the movie house. What is there for pleasure in the world that people can find by using the material energy? Because they do not know there is such a thing as spiritual energy. And it is because we haven't got the books out to them. We're not out there giving it to them. And we could be somehow, by crook, or we'd be inviting them here at least that we can give them a book. Everybody that comes here, we can somehow be thinking, how can I get this person to take a book?
Well, you know, gives me an idea of starting pushing the books when I give tours, because none of those people know they know very little about Krishna consciousness.
It's the best.
Giving Prabhupada small books.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll start encouraging that.
That is a very good idea.
Like yoga.
And especially when they ask questions relating to pertaining to specific ideas.
Oddly enough, it seems that a good half of the people that come for the tour know about Krishna consciousness, at least of it.
Yeah.
So they're not coming just for the mansion. They're kind of coming from both experiences.
Which is unique to this time, because it used to be, they didn't even want us chanting on the grounds. Because people didn't know where they were coming. We had bus tours coming in here. We have 4 or 5 tour buses in cooperation with Ford Mansion and the other mansions around. There was like, I think about 4 or 5 mansions that they could see on one group tour. And then
Really?
Dinner here, they would have lunch here, included in the price.
Wow.
So they would leave here and go to another mansion, leave there and go to another mansion like that. And in the first 6 months, 75,000 people had seen the mansion.
in
75,000?
6 months.
In 6 months' time. Yeah. We had a big grand opening because, if I'm not mistaken, Ambarish and his wife, they got married right around the same time. No, it was about a year later.
Ambridge Ford?
Yeah, Ambarish getting married. So that was a big thing. The governor came, and a lot of the Ford family was here. So those of us who were the peons, we were just, you know, don't come into these particular areas. You know. We work here, but because you know, and we couldn't be chanting on the grounds. So then we started seeing this kind of philosophy was affecting the people that were preaching that philosophy, because that wasn't Srila Prabhupada's philosophy either. Now we do chant, and still we invite people, and they're already coming. And you know, they used to ask a lot when we go out, oh, is the Fisher Mansion still open? Is the Govinda still open? Yeah. So it still has a reputation, and it could be revived. And we can be making, we used to have, it was called the Rose Garden, what was it, Rose Garden? Something about the musical effects of it. And we would get a student from the university to come here once a week, and they would have a concert, and they would play for donations. And then people would get a seasonal ticket to this, and then we'd have a meal served at noon up in the restaurant. And that was beautiful going on. So, it's a Rose Garden Symphony, something like that. Rose Garden Symphony, something serious. It was beautiful. There's so many potential functions that this mansion serves that could be used by the devotees to attract so many more thousands of souls.
Well, apparently Saturday we're going to be giving tours the whole time.
All right. God. Extend.
Yeah,
It's extend.
Yeah.
Any questions, any realization?
Thank you.
God. Shrimadbhagavatam. Ki Jai. Prabhupada. Ki Jai.